we dive into what could be the most entertaining political showdown since the Brexit debate. Hit that subscribe button because UK Connors brings you the political drama that mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Right, let's cut straight through the noise. Jeremy Clarkson, the man who punched a producer over a steak, crashed more supercars than most of us will ever see, and somehow became Britain's most unlikely farming advocate, has just lobbed a political hand grenade into Ed Miliband's backyard. And when I say backyard, I mean Doncaster North. The constituents of Miliband has clung to like a barnacle since 2005. The post dropped at 6:22 in the evening on X, formerly Twitter for those still catching up with Elon Musk's rebranding adventure. People of Doncaster North, are you happy with your MP? Would you like it if someone from your neck of the woods kicked him out? Subtle as a brick through a window, vintage Clarkson. Within hours, over 400 comments, nearly 500 retweets, and the British political sphere collectively lost its composure. This isn't some random celebrity dabbling in politics for a laugh. This is calculated, pointed, and frankly, rather brilliant provocation. Now, before you dismiss this as another celebrity stunt, let's examine the particulars. Clarkson isn't some London media-type parachuting into Yorkshire with vague notions of connecting with voters. The man was born in Doncaster, lived there until he was 13, and despite building an empire on cars, controversy, and now cider, he has never quite shaken off his South Yorkshire roots. This isn't Lawrence Fox attempting relevance in mayoral races. This is someone with genuine geographical credibility asking whether the locals fancy a change from nearly 20 years of the same representation. Ed Miliband, currently serving as Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, a title so unwieldy it could be a Monty Python sketch, has represented Doncaster North since 2005. That's 2 decades of the same face, the same promises, the same ministerial positions that take him far from the streets of Doncaster and into the rarefied air of Westminster committee rooms. Miliband, who once ate a bacon sandwich so awkwardly it arguably cost him a general election, now finds himself potentially facing a man who makes eating on camera look like performance art. The delicious irony here is that this isn't Clarkson's first rodeo with political flirtation. Cast your minds back to September 2013 when he tweeted about possibly standing as an independent candidate in, you guessed it, Doncaster North. The post was retweeted over 1,000 times, and here's where it gets properly interesting. Former Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott, a man not known for frivolous political endorsements, was among those sharing it. Prescott, who served alongside Tony Blair and knows Yorkshire politics like the back of his hand, so something worth amplifying. That should tell you everything about how seriously this possibility has been floating around for over a decade. What makes this latest post particularly explosive is the timing. Britain is stumbling through an energy crisis. Farmers are genuinely furious about inheritance tax changes that threaten generational family farms, and Miliband's net zero policies are about as popular in rural and industrial communities as vegetarian options at a steakhouse. Clarkson, meanwhile, has transformed from motoring journalist into an unlikely champion of British agriculture through his diddly squat farm and the wildly successful Amazon series Clarkson's Farm. His speaking to millions of viewers about farming realities, government bureaucracy, and rural decline in ways that resonate far more effectively than any parliamentary white paper. The reactions online have been predictably volcanic. Piers Baker, one commenter, declared, "Do it. I will come up and campaign for you, and so will hundreds of others." Another dangled free Hawkstone beer, Clarkson's own brand naturally, for every vote. Someone else cut to the chase. Clarkson versus Miliband. No contest whatsoever. Jeremy would win hands down. He understands the real issues. These aren't bot accounts or paid promoters. These are voters expressing genuine enthusiasm for celebrity candidacy. But not everyone's buying the populist terrify traditional politicians. The cynics have emerged with perfectly sharpened barbs. Always touching when a man with a farm shop in the Cotswolds worries about Doncaster North. Real salt of the earth stuff, quipped one user, highlighting the uncomfortable truth that Clarkson's farm isn't in Yorkshire, but in the decidedly more affluent Oxfordshire. Another treat of the whole affair's entertainment. Is this a Top Gear special? Because I'm in, capturing the surreal blend of politics and celebrity that defines modern British discourse. Here's where we need to get serious for a moment. Could Clarkson actually win? The answer is uncomfortably plausible. Doncaster North isn't some safe Labour fortress immune to upset. It's a constituency that's watched manufacturing decline, seen town centers hollow out, and felt increasingly disconnected from the Westminster bubble that Miliband inhabits. Labour's majority there has shrunk in recent elections, and voter apathy is endemic. Enter a celebrity candidate with name recognition that eclipses virtually every sitting MP, genuine local roots, a proven ability to communicate complex issues entertainingly, and a track record of taking on establishment figures from the BBC to local councils. That's not a publicity stunt. That's a genuine electoral threat. Consider what Clarkson brings beyond celebrity. He has built multiple successful businesses, employed hundreds of people, navigated Byzantine planning regulations that would make Kafka weep, and demonstrated repeatedly that he can engage audiences on serious topics without resorting to political jargon. When Clarkson talks about inheritance tax threatening family farms, he's not reading from a briefing document. He's speaking from lived experience of trying to make British agriculture viable in a system seemingly designed to crush it. When he criticizes environmental policies, it's not ideology. It's practical observation of regulations that sound wonderful in Whitehall but prove unworkable in actual fields. Miliband, by contrast, represents everything voters increasingly distrust about professional politicians. Educated at Oxford, career trajectory through think tanks and special advisor roles before entering Parliament, ministerial positions that involve more international conferences and constituent surgeries, and policies that often seem crafted for Guardian editorials rather than real-world application. The bacon sandwich incident, trivial as it sounds, crystallized a perception problem. Here was someone so disconnected from normal human activity that eating a sandwich became a career-defining disaster. Now imagine him debating Clarkson, a man who's made a career being relentlessly, unapologetically normal despite extraordinary success. The broader implications extend beyond one constituency. If Clarkson did stand and win, it would detonate a bomb under British political conventions. We've seen celebrity politicians before, Boris Johnson being the most obvious example, but those were celebrities who became politicians through traditional routes. Clarkson would represent pure outsider energy, someone who built credibility entirely outside the political system and then leveraged it directly into office. Every safe seat would suddenly look vulnerable to anyone with sufficient fame and a compelling local narrative. The two-party system, already creaking under pressure from Reform UK and renewed Liberal Democrat competitiveness, would face an existential crisis. But let's not get carried away with revolutionary fantasies just yet. There's a significant gap between tweeting provocatively and actually filing nomination papers. Running for Parliament isn't a lark. It requires organization, funding, relentless door-knocking, policy development beyond pithy social media posts, and the stomach for genuine scrutiny that makes Top Gear controversies look quaint. Clarkson would face questions about every controversial statement he's ever made, and there are decades of material. His views on everything from climate policy to public sector strikes would be dissected with forensic intensity. The man who could brush off criticism as entertainment would find political opposition plays by different, nastier rules. There's also the question of what Clarkson actually wants. He's 65, financially secure beyond most people's wildest dreams, and currently enjoying success with Clarkson's farm that has made him arguably more influential on agricultural policy than most backbench MPs. Why trade for the tedium of parliamentary committees, the constraint of party discipline if he stood for anyone but himself, and the grinding constituency work that defines most MPs' existence? The romantic notion of storming Westminster is rather different from the reality of surgeries with constituents complaining about potholes and bin collections. Yet the very fact we're having this conversation reveals something profound about British politics in 2025. Trust in traditional politicians has collapsed. Voter engagement has plummeted. The sense that Westminster operates in a parallel universe disconnected from ordinary concerns has become consensus across the political spectrum. Into this vacuum step figures like Clarkson who, whatever his flaws, at least seem authentic. When he rails against government incompetence, it doesn't sound like opposition tactics. It sounds like genuine frustration millions share. Miliband's response to all this has been conspicuous silence, which might be wise or might be fatal. Engaging with Clarkson's post risks amplifying it and lending credibility to what might just be social media mischief. Ignoring it, however, allows the narrative to build unchallenged. Doncaster North voters are now explicitly being asked whether they want change, and silence from their current representative doesn't exactly project confidence. The longer Miliband remained quiet, the more the speculation grows, and the more Clarkson's post looks less like provocation and more like a genuine declaration of intent. The timing couldn't be more awkward for Labour either. The party is navigating treacherous waters with rural policies that have alienated farming communities, energy policies that promise pain before gain, and a general sense that they are more interested in metropolitan progressive causes and concerns of traditional industrial heartlands like Doncaster. A Clarkson candidacy would force Labour to defend not just one seat, but their entire approach to voters outside London and university towns. It would be a referendum on whether celebrity outsiders can offer something that career politicians cannot. So where does this actually go? 3 scenarios present themselves. First, this is pure Clarkson mischief, a provocative post designed to wind up politicians and entertain his followers with no serious intent behind it. Second, it's a genuine test of the waters, gauging reaction before deciding whether to commit. Third, and most explosively, it's the opening salvo of an actual campaign that's been in planning for months. Given that he floated this exact idea back in 2013, the possibility that he's been seriously considering it for over a decade shouldn't be dismissed. If Clarkson does stand, British politics will never be quite the same. Win or lose, he proved that celebrity can translate directly into political viability without the traditional apprenticeship of local councils and party loyalty. He'd demonstrate that entertainment value and policy substance aren't mutually exclusive. And he'd force every sitting MP to wonder whether their own seat might be vulnerable to someone with a bigger platform and better communication skills. What's certain is that Doncaster North has suddenly become the most interesting constituency in Britain. A battle between Ed Miliband, former Labour leader and current cabinet minister, against Jeremy Clarkson, farming champion and professional provocateur, will be the most entertaining election contest in modern British history. It will be policy versus personality, establishment versus outsider, Westminster experience versus real-world credibility. The fact that we're even discussing this seriously shows how dramatically British politics has shifted. 20 years ago, the idea of Clarkson as an MP would have been dismissed as absurd as comedy. Today, it's a genuine possibility that a political strategist nervously checking polling data. Whether he actually stands or not, Clarkson has already achieved something remarkable. He's made people care about a single constituency race, sparked genuine debate about representation and accountability, and reminded everyone that politics doesn't have to be the preserve of professional politicians. That's more than most MPs achieve in entire careers. UK Connors will be tracking every development in this saga because if it does happen, you'll want to say you saw it coming. Subscribe now, because British politics just got infinitely more interesting, and we're covering every twist with the irreverence and insight it deserves.